I've done something which was looked down upon. I've documented traditional knowledge because this was an area which was, of course, totally marginalized during the colonial days for reasons that we know. And I've put that forward. The question we need to ask ourselves as leaders, as Africans, do we value our own culture? Are we proud to be Africans? Are we proud to eat African? Are we proud to think African? Are we proud to wear African? So I think if we got beyond this, I think we would have done a great job because we would have then truly decolonized our mind.
To pick on a point you made about the work you've been doing, the great and necessary and needed work of documenting the traditional knowledge, the traditional medicines and so forth in Mauritius, possibly beyond as well. So you've done a great job in the area of protecting biodiversity, which is your specialty area. And Mauritius, of course, has a rich biodiversity with many medicinal plants that are coming out of Mauritius, which are a source of active pharmaceutical ingredients, which are very highly sought after by the pharma industry, the cosmetic industry, the wellness industry, and the extraction and exploitation of those resources that are coming out of Mauritius, out of any African countries, are often not benefiting the people. They leave damage to the environment, the natural habitat of many species of plants and animals. We've seen this in the Niger Delta. What would you like to see Africans do to better protect those natural resources that we have, that we are not valuing enough, that we often hand over for others to exploit at our expense?
I'll ask you a question. How many cocoa trees grow in Belgium? How many cocoa trees grow in Switzerland? Where does the cocoa tree grow? 65% of the world cocoa production come out of West Africa from two countries, Ghana and Cote d'Ivoire. Do they transform the cocoa? That's the question we ask. If you look at the cosmetic industry, shea butter, where is it produced? How much goes back to the women who actually produce shea butter? How much transformation is happening on the continent? And I think this is one of the objectives of the free trade agreement, right? It has been signed and ratified. It's been rolled out as from the 1st of January of this year. And I think we need to really look at the internal African market. There is no reason why products which are grown in Ghana can't be used in Kenya or in Mauritius for that matter. And I think this is the hard question we need to look at. How much transformation of our resources that we are bringing so that, again, as I said, it creates innovation, it creates jobs. That's one thing. I'm just looking at some of the food crops and the crops, of course, which touch on the agricultural sector. Let's look at the medicine sector. 80% of the world's population still depend on, that's the WHO figures, still depend on herbal knowledge for the primary health care. And now if you look at some of the statistics that came out of WHO, 80% of the people in Ethiopia, for example, they will resort to traditional medicine when they have some issues, health issues. Of course, not the complicated one, but well, even the complicated one, sometimes they find solutions in the plants and animal bioresources. And interestingly, they compared this to many people in Germany who are increasingly turning to green medicine, right? And so we have to ask ourselves, if so much truth lies in our resources, our traditional knowledge, why is it that we are not value adding these? Why are we not adding value to this knowledge in order to generate the appropriate medication, the appropriate solutions to our own healthcare problems? And part of the reason is that for too long, we have kind of marginalized traditional knowledge. And now if you look at a country like China, I'm not saying Africa, of course, is 55 countries, so China is one country, but I think we look at the mindset. The Chinese government has given equal value to allopathic medicine, modern medicine, to Chinese traditional medicine. And if you ask any Chinese what they think of the traditional remedies, I mean, this is the first thing they'll turn to. when they're feeling poorly. So this is, again, a change in mindset. And again, as you have rightly said, there are so many new plants and new, so much diversity on our continent that we can pull from to define our own solution. And as I said, if you look at some of the plants which have given ingredient to the big industry, the pharma industries, many of them come from the tropical region, because it's the region which is most diverse. My region, Mauritius and the Mascarene Island, is one of the biodiversity hotspots. And there's so many across Africa which are biodiversity hotspots which need protection. Again, what do? Are we doing much? Are we doing enough to safeguard our own resources? And the thing is that it's a race against time, because we find that climate change is impacting the forest, and there are, of course, human settlements which are going right into the forest. So, I mean, all these are challenges we have to do. But I think the question, the overarching question we have to ask ourselves, are we doing enough? And my short answer is no, we are not doing enough. So what must be done? I mean, these are questions we need to be asking our leaders again, and ourselves, because at the end of the day, we can't put everything down to the political sector. We also have to look at ourselves as individuals willing to make a difference. And I think we should all be engaged in that space.
Absolutely. Ask yourself what you can do for your country, not what your country can do for you, right? And it brings us back to the issue of accountability in terms of the decisions that are made at a national level on behalf of the people, and how those decisions affect the people, their health, their well-being. We see projects like the Okavango Delta. There has been an announcement to explore for oil in the Okavango Delta, which is straddling Namibia and Botswana, one of the most pristine and beautiful natural habitats for plants and animals in Southern Africa. Projects like this, are they inevitable? Are they unavoidable? How do nations, how do leaders, governments balance the need to protect these very precious natural resources with the economic interests that are obviously driving those decisions to say it's okay to explore this UNESCO heritage site that is home to so many valuable species of plants and birds in our region?
I think, again, we need to relook at why do we need to do this exploration? Is it for oil? Again, the policy at the level of the continent, how are we going to change and move on to renewables? Do we have the right policy? And nowadays, green energy is generating growth. It's not as if you need to have, you need to go back to fossil fuel to grow your economy. The economy can still grow. So again, this goes all the way up in terms of decisions which are taken, sometimes not just nationally, but regionally, and also at continental level. What is the policy that we're going to have for Africa? Are we going to move on towards renewables? What policies do we have in place? What investment do we have in place? And this is how we're going to move until and unless we have the right policy decision at a certain level. We will keep on doing things piecemeal. Of course, don't forget that there is a lot of invested interest in moving ahead with this. But at the end of the day, it comes back again to the people. It comes back to us, individual, citizen. How do we accept? And if you look at what's happening in North America and the movement of people, at the end of the day, we have to reconcile with the fact that the power is with the individual. And we can make a change. And we have to make that change by speaking out and asking questions. Governance matter. How do we communicate with our leaders also matter. But at the end of the day, you still need to have the facts. You still need to have the data. And this is again where the weakness comes back to us again, because we wouldn't have generated the data. So how can we actually engage the discussion when it's not fact-based? So these are the questions we need to ask ourselves.
Absolutely. You point out that this is something that, of course, people at the local level would have to speak out and ask questions about how those decisions impact their lives. But at a higher level, at a continental level, there is a need to think about the energy policy of the continent and, of course, preservation of all of these natural resources of the continent.